The boot ground into my sternum, forcing the air from my lungs in a painful gasp. Kyler's ugly face, a constellation of pimples and smug satisfaction, loomed over me. "Got something to say now, swamp freak?" he grunted, applying more pressure. I couldn't say anything. My eyes were locked on Kiera. She stood by a great oak, arms folded, her perfect features a mask of what? Indifference? Regret? It didn't matter. She'd led me here. Her sweet smile and the promise of a private talk had been a lie. A lure to get me away from the group, away from the teachers. "I told you to stay away from her," Kyler spat, his friends chuckling behind him. The pain in my ribs was a dull, throbbing fire. My head swam from where he'd slammed it against a tree root. I just looked at her, a silent question in my eyes. "Why?" She broke eye contact first, her gaze flitting to the darkening sky. A faint tremor ran through the ground, and a distant, guttural shriek echoed through the forest. One of Kyler's cronies, a lanky kid named Kevin, shivered. "Hey, man, maybe we should get back." Mr. Davison said to stay close. Kyler scoffed, but he lifted his foot off my chest. "Fine. Let's leave the trash where it belongs." He gave me one last kick to the ribs for good measure. I curled into a ball, coughing, the taste of dirt and blood in my mouth. They laughed as they walked away, their voices fading into the trees. Kiera hesitated for a single moment. Our eyes met one last time. I saw a flash of fear in her expression, but it wasn't for me. Then she turned and followed them, disappearing into the gloom. I was alone. Truly alone. The pain was immense, a crushing weight on my body and my spirit. I tried to push myself up, but my arms screamed in protest, likely broken. Darkness was falling fast, and the sounds of the forest were changing. The familiar chirps of crickets were being replaced by wet, slithering noises. The news had been full of it for weeks. The tangled blight, they called it. A virus that caused rapid, uncontrolled growths in animals. Tentacles, mostly. It was distant, a problem for other people in other places. Until now. I dragged myself towards what I thought was the direction of the camp. Every movement was agony. My leg buckled, and I tumbled down a short, muddy embankment, landing with a splash in shallow, stinking water. A swamp. Perfect. Panic began to set in, cold and sharp. They wouldn't just leave me, would they? Mr. Davison would do a head count. They'd come looking for me. I had to believe that. I tried to pull myself out of the muck, my fingers sinking into the soft mud. A rustle in the reeds nearby made me freeze. Two small, glowing red eyes peered out at me. It was a raccoon, its body unnaturally swollen. From its back, a trio of slimy, purple tentacles writhed like snakes, tipped with tiny, grasping claws. My blood ran cold. It hissed, a sound that was half chitter, half gurgle. It saw my broken arm, my weakness. It saw a meal. I scrabbled backward, my good hand searching for a rock, a branch, anything. The creature lunged. Its speed was unnatural. It landed on my chest, its claws digging into my jacket. The tentacles whipped through the air, slapping against my face, trailing a foul-smelling slime. I yelled, a raw sound of terror and pain, and thrashed wildly. One of its tentacles lashed down, the clawed tip slicing my cheek. Then, its teeth, sharp and needle-like, sank into my injured arm. A white-hot, searing pain erupted from the bite, far worse than the break itself. It felt like acid being poured directly into my veins. Adrenaline surged through me. With a final, desperate heave, I grabbed the creature with my good hand and threw it against a tree. It hit with a wet crunch and lay still. I scrambled away, my whole body shaking uncontrollably. The bite on my arm was already turning black. Veins of dark purple snaked up my skin, visible even in the dim light. The virus. I was infected. My vision started to blur at the edges. A burning fever was consuming me from the inside out. I collapsed at the edge of the swamp, my body convulsing. This was it. I was going to die out here, alone and forgotten, turning into one of those monsters. The last thing I remembered was the sound of a distant helicopter and the faint, panicked shouts of my classmates. They were leaving. They were leaving me behind. Then, everything went black. Consciousness returned not as a gentle dawn, but as a violent storm. My body was a battlefield. Every cell felt like it was at war with itself. I felt an alien presence, a ravenous, chaotic force trying to unravel my DNA, to rewrite me into something monstrous. It showed me images, flashes of instinct. The urge to hunt, to consume, to grow, to spread. But beneath the viral onslaught, something in me pushed back. A stubborn, defiant spark. The memory of Kyler's boot on my chest. The image of Kiara turning her back. The sound of the helicopter flying away. Rage. Pure, undiluted rage gave me strength. I would not become one of them. I would not die like this. I focused all my will, all my anger, on that single point of defiance. I fought the invader in the landscape of my own biology. It felt like an eternity. I felt my bones threatening to break and reform. My muscles tore and stitched themselves back together. The pain was beyond anything I could have imagined. And then, silence. The fever broke like a dam. The pain receded, leaving behind a strange, humming energy. I opened my eyes. It was morning. Sunlight filtered through the canopy, dappling the swampy ground. I sat up. No pain. I looked at my arm, the one that had been broken, the one that had been bitten. The bone was healed, the skin seamless, save for a faint, starburst-shaped scar where the teeth had sunk in. The black veins were gone. I felt incredible. Stronger than I had ever felt in my life. My senses were on fire. I could hear the frantic heartbeat of a rabbit 100 yards away. I could see the intricate patterns on a dragonfly's wing as it hovered over the water. I smelled the damp earth, the chlorophyll in the leaves, the distant scent of pine. Something was different. I pushed myself to my feet and looked at my reflection in the murky water. It was me, but sharper. My eyes, once a dull brown, now had flecks of gold in them. My lanky frame seemed denser, more solid. Then I saw it. A flicker of movement behind me. I turned, but there was nothing there. I focused, concentrating on the feeling I'd had. And it happened. From my back, just below my shoulder blades, 2 tendrils of solid, crimson biomass erupted. They weren't slimy or grotesque like the raccoons. They were sleek, muscular, and tapered to a sharp point. They moved with a life of their own, yet I controlled them as easily as my own limbs. I stared, mesmerized. I wasn't a monster. I hadn't just survived the virus. I had conquered it. I had made its power my own. The tentacles, or whatever they were, retracted back into my body, leaving no trace. A grim smile touched my lips for the first time. They left me for dead. They were about to find out how big a mistake that was. First things first, survival. I was hungry, a deep, gnawing hunger that felt bottomless. My new senses went into overdrive. I could smell fresh water nearby and the scent of wild berries. I followed the instincts that were now a part of me, finding a small, clear stream and bushes laden with edible fruit. As I ate, I experimented with the new appendages. I could extend them up to 15 feet. They were strong enough to punch clean through a rotten log and delicate enough to pluck a single berry without crushing it. I spent the day mastering this new part of myself. The forest, which had been a place of terror, now felt like my kingdom. I was no longer prey. That night, I was hunting. Not for food, but for answers. And for a challenge. I found it in the form of a mutated wild boar. It was twice the size of a normal one, its hide thick and leathery. A writhing mass of thorny tentacles grew from its spine, lashing out at anything that came near. The old me would have been a smear on the forest floor. The new me saw an opportunity. It charged, a bellowing roar tearing from its throat. I stood my ground. My crimson tendrils shot out, not to attack, but to wrap around a thick tree trunk. I vaulted into the air, swinging over the boar's head as it thundered past. It skidded to a halt, turning with surprising agility. Its thorny tentacles whipped towards me. I met them with my own. Crimson flesh slammed against thorny hide. I was faster, more precise. I dodged and weaved, using my tendrils to push off trees, making me an unpredictable, three-dimensional target. I learned its patterns, its rhythms. Then I struck. One of my tendrils fainted high. As the boar raised its defenses, my other tendril shot low, sharpening its tip into a blade of hardened biomass, and pierced its leg. It squealed in pain and fury. It was wounded, enraged. It charged again, blindly this time. I didn't dodge. My tendrils shot out, wrapping around its tusks. I planted my feet, digging into the soft earth, and held on. The force of the impact was staggering, but I held. My muscles screamed, but they didn't break. I was stronger than this beast. With a roar of my own, I lifted. The massive boar was hoisted into the air, thrashing and squealing. I slammed it into the ground. Once. Twice. The third time, it lay still. I stood over it, breathing heavily, not from exhaustion, but from exhilaration. As I stood there, a strange impulse washed over me. An instinct I didn't recognize. I placed a hand on the dead creature's flank. I felt a strange tingling sensation, a flow of information. Not thoughts, but biological data. Genetics. Structure. Adaptations. I felt the knowledge of its thorny hide, its raw strength, its thick skull. I focused on the memory of the thorns. I held out my arm, and with a small grimace of effort, my skin shifted. Small, sharp keratinous points pushed through my skin along my forearm, hard as rock. I had absorbed its traits. My power wasn't just creating tentacles. It was biomorphic adaptation. Chimeric genesis. I could become a chimera of anything I defeated, anything I touched. A cold, dangerous excitement filled me. The world had changed, and I had changed with it. I spent the next week in those woods, a ghost in the trees. I was no longer Kale, the quiet, bullied kid. I was a predator. I hunted the mutated creatures that now infested the forest. A giant beetle with an iridescent carapace. After absorbing it, I could manifest a near impenetrable armor over my skin at will. A flock of birds whose wings had become leathery, razor-sharp blades. I couldn't grow wings, not yet, but I learned how to shape my tendrils into aerodynamic surfaces, allowing me to glide from tree to tree, to control my falls. Each victory was a new weapon in my arsenal. My control grew, my power expanded. I combined the traits. Armored skin, bladed tendrils, the silent movements of a mutated lynx. I was becoming the ultimate survivor. But survival wasn't enough. The thoughts of my family haunted me. My mom, my little sister, Maya. Were they safe? The city was miles away, a concrete jungle that was probably now more dangerous than this forest. I had to go back. I had to find them. The journey to the edge of the forest took 2 days. The world outside was eerily quiet. The highway was a graveyard of abandoned cars. The distant skyline of the city was smudged with columns of black smoke. This was worse than I thought. Much worse. I traveled by night, sticking to the shadows. My enhanced senses were a blessing and a curse. I could hear the screams from miles away. I could smell the coppery tang of blood on the wind. The creatures here were different. They had adapted to the urban environment. Mutated dogs with tentacles that could shatter concrete. Swarms of rats fused together into a single, undulating mass of teeth and claws. This was a war zone. My first real test came at a military checkpoint on the outskirts of the city. It was overrun. The bodies of soldiers were strewn about, tangled in the wreckage of barricades. A creature was feasting on the dead. It was humanoid in shape, but its arms had split into multiple, whip-like tentacles. Its skin was pale and rubbery. It was fast. It saw me and screeched, a sound that grated on my nerves. It bounded towards me, using its tentacles to propel itself off walls and cars. I didn't hesitate. Carapace armor flowed over my body. My tendrils, now 4 of them, erupted from my back, 2 sharpened into blades, 2 ending in heavy, hammer-like fists. We met in a blur of motion. It was strong, but I was stronger. It was fast, but I was faster. Its whips cracked the air, but they sparked harmlessly off my armor. My blades sliced through its rubbery hide. My biohammers crushed its limbs. It was a brutal, efficient fight. When it was over, I stood among the dead, my armor retracting, my tendrils dissolving back into my body. I wasn't just a survivor anymore. I was a warrior. I absorbed what I could from the creature. Its elasticity, the way its muscles contracted for bursts of speed. More tools for the toolbox. Getting into the city proper was a nightmare. Every street was a new battlefield. I saw pockets of survivors, huddled in barricaded buildings, their faces etched with fear. I saw military units fighting losing battles against overwhelming odds. I didn't engage unless I had to. My family was the mission. Our apartment was on the west side, a 20-story building in a decent neighborhood. I hoped that meant it was more secure. It took me a full day to cross the city. I moved across rooftops, a silent shadow, my enhanced senses guiding me. When I finally saw my building, my heart pounded in my chest. The lower floors were dark and seemed abandoned, but I saw flickering lights on the upper levels. There were signs of a struggle. Barricades at the main entrance were smashed. Dark stains marred the concrete. I didn't take the door. I scaled the side of the building, my tendrils finding handholds in the brickwork, pulling me upwards with ease. I reached our floor, the 15th. The window to our living room was boarded up from the inside. I listened. I heard the faint, terrified whimpering of my sister, Maya, and the low, soothing voice of my mother. They were alive. Relief washed over me so intensely my knees felt weak. But I heard something else. A scraping sound from inside the apartment. And a low, guttural growl. I didn't knock. My tendril, hardened and sharpened to a point, punched through the plywood and the window lock. I slid the window open and slipped inside. The living room was dark, lit only by a few emergency glow sticks. My mom and Maya were huddled in the corner, behind an overturned sofa. My mom held a kitchen knife, her hands shaking. Maya was crying silently into her shoulder. Between me and them was a creature. It looked like it had once been our neighbor, Mr. Henderson. Now, he was a stooped, twisted thing, his jaw unhinged. A single, thick tentacle sprouted from his chest, probing the air. He hadn't noticed me yet. He was stalking my family. A rage colder and purer than any I had felt before flooded my senses. "Get away from them," I said. My voice was a low growl, deeper than I remembered. The creature spun around, its eyes wide and feral. My mom and Maya looked up. In the dim green light of the glow sticks, my mom gasped. "Kale? Is that you?" The creature shrieked and charged at me. It never had a chance. Two bladed tendrils shot from my back, faster than the eye could follow. They passed clean through the monster's chest. It froze, a look of surprise on its twisted face, before collapsing into a heap. Silence. I stood there, the blades retracting, leaving no trace they were ever there. I turned to my family. Maya stared at me, her eyes wide with fear and awe. My mom slowly lowered the knife. "Kale, what happened to you?" Tears streamed down her face as she ran to me, pulling me into a hug. I held her tight, the feeling of her arms around me more real than anything I'd experienced in the last 2 weeks. "I'm okay, Mom," I whispered. "I'm here now. I'm going to keep you safe." We spent the next hour talking. I told them a heavily edited version of the story. Left in the woods, got lost, something happened, and now I could do this. They told me how the city fell apart in a matter of hours. How Dad had been at his office across town when it happened. They hadn't heard from him since. A new mission formed in my mind. Find Dad. But first, secure this place. The building was infested. I could hear them, the scuttling and groaning things that used to be our neighbors. That night, I cleaned house. I moved from floor to floor, a silent angel of death. My movements were fluid, my attacks precise. No creature in that building could stand against me. I used every trick I had learned. The carapace armor, the bladed tendrils, the crushing force, the lightning speed. I absorbed every new mutation I encountered. A creature with sonar-like clicking gave me a way to see in the dark. Another with sticky pads on its limbs let me cling to ceilings. By dawn, the building was silent. It was a fortress. Our fortress. I dragged furniture, reinforcing the barricades on the lower floors. I cleared a path to the roof, giving us an escape route and a watchtower. For the first time in weeks, my mom and Maya slept soundly. I stood watch on the rooftop, looking out over the burning city. I was their protector. This power, born from betrayal and pain, would be their shield. The next few days established a routine. By night, I patrolled our territory, expanding it block by block. I learned there were different strains of the infected. The mindless shamblers, the fast predators, and the worst ones, the alphas. They were larger, smarter, and often had unique abilities. They were also prime targets for my absorption ability. By day, I scavenged. I was the only one who could move through the city with any degree of safety. I brought back food, water, medicine, and supplies. I didn't just provide for my family, I started helping other survivors in our building. They were terrified of me at first. But when you're starving, The kid who can bring back a crate of canned food without a scratch on him becomes a hero, no matter how he does it. They started calling me the Crimson Ghost. News of a safe zone started to spread among the survivors. A military-run bastion in the city center, at the old stadium. They were supposedly taking in refugees. It was also where Dad's office was. The decision was easy. We had to get there. Moving my family and a dozen other survivors across 5 miles of hostile city was the most dangerous thing I had ever attempted. We moved in the gray light of dawn, the time when the nocturnal creatures were retreating and the diurnal ones weren't fully active. I was the vanguard, the scout, and the rearguard all at once. My tendrils were a constant presence, scouting around corners, checking rooftops. My enhanced senses picked up threats long before anyone else saw them. We were halfway there when it all went wrong. We were crossing a wide plaza when we were ambushed. A pack of the fast, humanoid infected burst out of a subway entrance. But they weren't alone. With them was an alpha. It was huge, a hulking brute of a creature that looked like a gorilla crossed with a centipede. Its lower body was a mass of skittering legs, and its upper body had 4 powerful arms, each ending in a pincer of bone. It was intelligent. It directed the pack, hurting us, cutting off our escape. "Get them inside that building," I yelled to the group, pointing to a department store. "Barricade the doors." My mom grabbed Maya, her face pale but determined. "Kale, be careful." I gave her a confident nod I didn't entirely feel. Then I turned to face the horde. The pack swarmed me. I became a whirlwind of crimson death. My bladed tendrils were a blur, slicing through infected bodies. My armored fists shattered mutated skulls. I used the elasticity I'd absorbed to leap and twist, making it impossible to pin me down. But there were too many of them. For every one I cut down, 2 more took its place. And the alpha was just watching. Waiting. It saw my weakness. A small gap in my defense as I decapitated one creature and impaled another. In that split second, it moved. Its speed was unbelievable for its size. One of its massive arms swung out, not at me, but at the wall of the department store where the survivors were hiding. The concrete exploded inward. Panic erupted from inside. It was trying to get to them. To my family. I saw red. I let the pack swarm me, ignoring the blows that hammered against my carapace. I focused everything on the alpha. All 4 of my tendrils combined into one, massive, spear-like appendage. I put every ounce of my strength, every bit of my rage, into a single, desperate charge. I shot forward like a bullet, a crimson comet. The alpha turned, its multiple eyes widening in surprise. It tried to bring its arms up to block. Too late. My speared tendril slammed into its chest with the force of a freight train. We crashed through the wall of another building, a shower of dust and debris raining down on us. The alpha shrieked, a sound of pure agony, and tried to crush me with its pincers. I held my ground, pushing the spear deeper. I could feel its biology, a torrent of alien information. Segmented armor, rapid cell regeneration, neural command over lesser infected. I absorbed it all, greedily. My body screamed at the influx of new data. I felt my own form shifting, adapting. The alpha shuddered and then went limp, its life force extinguished. I pulled my tendril back, gasping for breath. The remaining pack members, their leader gone, became disorganized and scattered. I was exhausted, my energy reserves dangerously low. I stumbled out of the ruined building back into the plaza. That's when I saw them. A group of people, armed with makeshift weapons, were picking off the last of the scattered infected. They were young, my age. And I recognized them. It was a group of students from my school. Leading them, a pipe wrench in his hand, was Kyler. And behind him, her face a mixture of shock, fear, and something else I couldn't place, was Kiera. Our eyes met across the corpse-strewn plaza. The world seemed to grind to a halt. Kyler's jaw was slack, his eyes wide with disbelief. He looked from the dead alpha to the carnage around me, and then back to me. "Kale? No way. You're supposed to be dead." I just stared at him, my expression unreadable. The weeks of rage, of hate, of fantasizing about this moment, all of it seemed to fade, replaced by a cold, empty calm. He was small. Pathetic. A boy with a pipe wrench standing in the shadow of a god. Kiera took a hesitant step forward. "Kale, we heard the evacuation order." They said the whole area was being sterilized. We thought. You thought I was dead, I finished for her, my voice flat. You left me. There was no accusation in my tone, just a statement of fact. It was worse than any shout. The guilt on her face was plain to see. Before anyone could say another word, the department store doors creaked open. My mom ran out, her eyes searching frantically. Kale. She saw me and rushed to my side, checking me for injuries. Are you hurt? What was that thing? I'm fine, Mom, I said, my voice softening instantly. It's over. The contrast was not lost on the students. They saw the monster who had just slaughtered a horde of abominations become a son, gentle and caring. It broke their understanding of the world. Kyler finally found his voice, a mix of his old bravado and new fear. What the hell are you? Some kind of freak? My gaze snapped to him. The coldness returned. I'm what this world made me, I said. What you left me to become. I took a step towards him. He flinched, raising the pipe wrench defensively. I laughed, a dry, humorless sound. You still think that can help you? I let one of my tendrils snake out from my back. It moved slowly, deliberately. It wrapped around the wrench in his hand. With a gentle squeeze, the solid steel pipe crumpled like a soda can. Kyler dropped it with a yelp, stumbling backward. The other students stared, terrified. I looked at Kiara. Her eyes were filled with tears. I'm sorry, Kale, she whispered. I was a coward. I was afraid of him. We're all afraid, I said, retracting my tendril. Fear isn't an excuse. It's a choice. You choose to be a coward, or you choose to be something more. I turned my back on them. My family, my people, were waiting. We're heading for the stadium. You can come if you can keep up. But stay out of my way. Without waiting for a reply, I began to lead my group of survivors away, leaving my former classmates standing in the middle of the plaza, their high school pecking order shattered into a million pieces. The rest of the journey to the stadium was tense. Kyler's group tagged along, keeping a safe distance. They were a liability, untrained and loud, but they were also human, and I couldn't just leave them to die. Kiara tried to approach me a few times, but I ignored her. I had more important things to worry about. The stadium was a fortress. 10-foot walls topped with razor wire, military patrols on the catwalks. It was a beacon of hope in a city of death. Getting inside wasn't easy. They were wary of letting people in, afraid of infection. But a demonstration of my power, carefully controlled, got their attention. I dismantled a small pack of infected that were harassing the gate, doing it with clean, surgical precision. The commander of the gate, a hard-faced woman named Major Eva Rostova, came out to meet me herself. She wasn't scared. She was intrigued. We've had reports of a powerful biokinetic operating in the West Sector, she said, her eyes appraising me. I assumed that was you. I'm just trying to keep my family safe, I replied. She nodded, her gaze lingering on my mom and Maya. And you've done a hell of a job. Get your people inside. You and I need to talk. The stadium was a city within a city. Thousands of survivors crammed into the stands and concourses. There were field hospitals, makeshift schools, and a palpable sense of community, of defiance. My group was processed and given a place to stay. I made sure my mom and Maya were settled before I went to meet with the major. Her office was a converted skybox overlooking the entire stadium. With her was a young woman in a lab coat, her hair tied in a messy bun and her eyes sharp and intelligent behind her glasses. This is Dr. Kalina Vance, the major said. She's our lead researcher on the blight. Kalina looked at me not as a person, but as a fascinating puzzle. Your abilities, she began, her voice filled with academic curiosity. You've somehow integrated the viral DNA into your own genome without succumbing to the degenerative effects. You've stabilized it. How? I got angry, I said simply. She blinked, not expecting that answer. Major Rostova got straight to the point. We're losing this city, Kale. Our patrols are getting hit harder every day. The infected are evolving, getting smarter. We need an edge. You're that edge. She offered me a deal. A private, secure apartment for my family. Priority access to supplies. And a dedicated search team to find my father. In return, I would become their weapon. I would join a special unit, a strike team that went into the hot zones to take out high-value targets. Alphas. Nests. Things the regular soldiers couldn't handle. I didn't even have to think about it. When do I start? My life changed again. I was given military gear, a communications unit, and a designation, Chimera. My team was a small group of elite soldiers, led by a stoic lieutenant named Marcus. They were skeptical of me at first, this teenager who was supposed to be their ace in the hole. That changed on our first mission. We were tasked with clearing out a nest in the financial district. The Alpha was a spider-like horror that had cocooned an entire skyscraper. The soldiers' bullets were useless against its thick, silky webbing and armored hide. I, on the other hand, tore through the nest like it was paper. My bladed tendrils sliced through webbing and creature alike. I met the Alpha on the top floor. It was a fast, venomous beast with dozens of eyes. I absorbed a chameleon-like creature on the way up. I turned invisible, stalked it, and tore it apart from the inside out. After that, the team looked at me with a mixture of respect and fear. I was their monster, but I was on their side. I worked closely with Kalina. She was brilliant, the only person who could even begin to understand what was happening to me. She ran tests, took samples, and built a database of all the creatures I absorbed. She wasn't afraid of me. She was fascinated. Your potential is theoretically limitless, she told me one day, her eyes gleaming with excitement. Every new sample you absorb doesn't just add to your arsenal, it refines your control over the core biomass. You're not just collecting abilities, you're upgrading your entire operating system. We developed a strange friendship. A bond forged in science and survival. She understood the power in a way no one else did. She helped me refine it, to push my limits. I learned to create decoy constructs, small, mindless versions of myself to draw enemy fire. I learned to manipulate my own biology to heal faster, to filter toxins, to see in different spectrums of light. Meanwhile, my old life kept trying to intrude. Kiera had found a role for herself, volunteering in the field hospital. I saw her sometimes, her face tired but determined. She was trying to atone. She would leave food and supplies outside my family's apartment. Small gestures of peace. My mom told me Kiera had asked about me, if I was okay. I still hadn't spoken to her. Kyler, surprisingly, had joined the militia. The raw brutality of the new world seemed to suit him. He wasn't a bully anymore, he was a survivor. He avoided me like the plague, a silent understanding passing between us. The past was the past. The present was all that mattered. One day, Kenna found me. She was a girl from my class, quiet and artistic. She'd always been nice to me, but I'd been too blinded by my crush on Kiera to notice. She was working as a records keeper, tracking the names of the refugees. I was so worried, she said, her voice soft. When they said you were missing, I kept hoping you'd turn up. There was a genuine warmth in her that was a stark contrast to Kiera's guilt-ridden apologies and Kalina's scientific curiosity. She saw Kale, not Chimera. She remembered the boy, not the monster. It was nice. The search for my father continued. The team Ristova assigned was good, but the city was a labyrinth of death. The trail was cold. Then we got a breakthrough. Kalina was analyzing the data from all the alphas I had taken down. There's a pattern, she said, pointing to a map of the city dotted with red markers. The alphas aren't random. They're nodes in a network. And the network seems to be controlled from a central hub. A prime. The theory was terrifying. There was a single, super-intelligent creature orchestrating the entire infestation of the city. If we could find it and kill it, we might be able to break the hive mind, throwing the lesser creatures into chaos. The energy signatures are strongest in the old industrial district, Kalina said, zooming in on the map. Specifically, at the defunct GeoCorp labs. GeoCorp. The name hit me like a physical blow. That's where my dad worked, I said, my voice barely a whisper. He was a biochemist there. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. The location of the prime. My father's disappearance. Major Ristova looked at me, her expression grim. It seems your mission just got personal. The mission was greenlit immediately. It was an all-or-nothing assault. My team, backed by 2 squads of the best soldiers in the stadium, would breach the lab and I would take down the prime. The night before we left, my mom hugged me tighter than ever before. Find your father. Bring him home. Kenna came to see me off. She didn't say much. She just handed me a small, worn leather-bound book. A sketchbook. Something to remind you of who you are, she whispered before quickly walking away. As I was checking my gear, Kiera approached me. It was the first time we'd spoken face to face since the plaza. I heard where you're going, she said, her voice trembling slightly. It's my fault you're in this position. If I hadn't been so stupid. It doesn't matter anymore, Kiera, I said, my voice tired. We all did things we regret. Let me help, she pleaded. I've been training as a medic. Your team will need one. I looked at her, really looked at her. The shallow, popular girl was gone. In her place was a woman forged in crisis, desperate for redemption. Ask Lieutenant Marcus, I said. It's his call. She did. And to my surprise, Marcus agreed. We're short a medic, he grunted. She can carry a bag and apply a bandage, she's in. So, with a team of soldiers, a guilt-ridden medic, and the weight of the city on my shoulders, I headed out to face the heart of the storm. The GeoCorp lab was a fortress of twisted flesh and bone. The building itself had been assimilated by the blight. Pulsating sacs clung to the walls and thick, vein-like tentacles covered every surface, all leading towards the central research tower. The air hummed with a psychic pressure that scraped at the inside of my skull. This was the Prime's lair. Chimera, you're our spearhead, Marcus ordered over the comms. Clear a path. I didn't need to be told twice. I manifested the best traits I had accumulated. The carapace of the beetle, the speed of the urban hunter, the invisibility of the chameleon, and 8-bladed tendrils, a spinning vortex of death. I was the thing the monsters had nightmares about. We breached the perimeter, fighting our way through hordes of guards, creatures more advanced and grotesque than any I had seen before. They were hybrids, amalgamations of different creatures, intelligently designed. The soldiers fought bravely, but they were outclassed. We took casualties. Kiera proved her worth, fearlessly dragging wounded soldiers to cover, her hands working quickly to staunch wounds, her face a mask of concentration. She was earning her redemption in blood and dirt. We made it to the base of the main tower. The psychic pressure was immense. The Prime knows we're here, I said, my teeth clenched. It's calling its guards. The walls of the tower seemed to melt, spawning dozens of elite abominations. We were about to be overwhelmed. I had to go alone, I told Marcus. It's me it wants. Keep them busy here. Kale, no, Kiera shouted. It's the only way, I said, my eyes locking with hers. Get them out if I don't come back. Before anyone could argue, I launched myself up the side of the tower. I used the sonar clicks I'd absorbed to navigate the interior, smashing through walls and floors, always moving upwards, towards the source of the psychic energy. I finally burst into the penthouse lab. The main chamber. The room was a cathedral of horrors. The walls were coated in pulsing, organic matter. In the center of the room, suspended by a web of thick, black tentacles, was the Prime. It wasn't a monster. It was a man. He was floating in a translucent sack of amniotic fluid, wires and tubes connecting him to the sprawling mass of the hive. His eyes were closed, his face serene. It was my father. I stared in horror, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. A voice echoed in my head, not spoken, but felt. My son. You have come. It was his voice, but alien, layered with 1,000 other whispers. Dad? What happened? What is this? My own voice trembled. There was an accident. A containment breach. The virus was adaptive. It needed a host. A mind to shape its potential. I was the only one here. I could see flashes of his memory. The alarms, the chaos, the virus seeping into the room. His desperate attempt to control it, to reason with it. And his failure. He hadn't been consumed. He had merged with it. He was the hive mind. I have been watching you, Kale. Your strength, your resilience. You have perfected what I could only contain. You have mastered the genesis. You're controlling them? I asked, gesturing to the city below. The attacks, the deaths, that's all you? There is no me anymore. There is only the collective. We are creating a more perfect world. One without weakness, without pain. We are the next stage of evolution. The black tentacles around him began to writhe and undulate. Creatures began to form from the walls, the most powerful ones yet, chimeras of all the alphas I had defeated. The Prime was using my own history against me. Join us, Kale. Together, we can reshape this world. Your mother, your sister, they can be a part of it. We can make them like us. Strong. Eternal. He was offering me everything. Power. Safety for my family. A world remade in our image. But I saw the cost. The loss of humanity. The screams of the people in the city below. No, I said, my voice hardening. My own tendrils erupted from my back, no longer just crimson, but a swirling kaleidoscope of colors, representing the dozens of creatures I had absorbed. I am not you. I protect humanity. I don't replace it. A disappointing but predictable choice. The chimeras charged. The battle was unlike any I had ever fought. I was fighting reflections of myself. A creature with my carapace armor and bladed wings. Another with my bioelectric attack and sonar senses. It was a brutal, desperate dance of death in the heart of the hive. I was stronger, more versatile. I had something the Prime couldn't replicate. My rage. My will. I tore through his creations, one by one, absorbing their refined abilities even as I destroyed them. I was evolving in real time, in the heat of battle. Finally, only I remained, standing before the suspended form of my father. It's over, I panted, my body aching. You were right. The floor beneath me exploded upwards. A massive tentacle, the Prime's own appendage, slammed into me, throwing me across the room. My armor cracked, my ribs screamed. This was his true power. The raw, focused might of the entire hive. He wasn't just the brain, he was the heart and the muscle. You are strong, my son, but I am Legion. Dozens of the black tentacles descended on me, pinning me, crushing me. My vision started to fade. I was losing. Then, I heard a voice over my comm unit, which I thought was destroyed. It was Kalina. Kale, can you hear me? I'm in the system. I've been piggybacking your psychic connection. Her voice was a lifeline in the darkness. The Prime, your father, is the core processor, but he's not the power source. The virus itself, it has a central nexus. It's located at the base of the suspension pillar. Destroy it, and the entire network will collapse. I fought against the pressure, trying to turn my head. I saw it. A glowing, pulsating node deep within the organic mass that held my father. The heart of the virus. I couldn't reach it. My tendrils were pinned. My body was being crushed. Clever girl, asterisk, the Prime's voice echoed. But it is too late. Then, another explosion rocked the room. Not from below, but from the side. Lieutenant Marcus and the rest of the surviving soldiers burst through the wall, laying down a hail of suppressive fire. Behind them was Kiera, her face set with grim determination. We're not leaving you behind. Marcus yelled. Their distraction was all I needed. The pressure on me lessened for a fraction of a second. I poured every last bit of my energy, every scrap of my will, into one final gambit. I couldn't extend my tendrils. So I made them erupt. From my chest, a single, hyper-dense, armor-piercing spike of biomass shot forward. It was a desperate, all-or-nothing attack. The spike flew true. It pierced the pulsing nexus. A deafening, psychic scream echoed through all our minds. The Prime's eyes, my father's eyes, snapped open. For a moment, just a moment, I saw him. My dad. Not the monster, not the hive mind. Just him. Kale, thank you, asterisk, his true voice whispered in my mind. I'm proud of you. Then, the light in his eyes faded. The entire structure began to collapse. The nexus imploded, creating a vacuum that pulled all the organic matter in the room towards it. The black tentacles released me. Marcus grabbed my arm. We had to go. Now. We ran, scrambling out of the collapsing tower as the hive mind died around us. All across the city, the infected screamed one last time, and then fell silent, their strings cut. We made it out just as the GeoCorp tower crumbled into a mountain of dead flesh and ruined steel. We had won. The aftermath was quiet. The city was free. The cleanup would take years, but the war was over. I was a hero. The hero who had killed his own father to save the world. The weight of that was heavy. Major Ristova offered me a permanent position, a leading role in a new worldwide force to deal with any future outbreaks. I turned it down. I was done fighting. I wanted to live. The stadium became a center for rebuilding. Life started to find a new normal. One evening, I stood on the roof of our new, permanent apartment building, looking out at the slowly healing city. Kenna came and stood beside me. She didn't say anything, just handed me her sketchbook. I opened it. She had drawn me. Not as Chimera, the armored monster, but as Kale. Standing on a rooftop, looking at the sunrise. There was a quiet strength in the drawing, a hopefulness. It was how she saw me. Kiera found me there a few minutes later. She'd seen Kenna leave. "She's good for you," Kiera said, her voice soft with a tinge of sadness. "She sees the person you are, not the mistakes you've made." "Or the mistakes I've made for you," I replied, not unkindly. "I'll never be able to make up for what I did, Kale," she said, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "But I'm going to spend my life trying to be someone worthy of the second chance you gave me." She turned and left me with Kenna's drawing and my thoughts. A little while later, another person joined me. Kalina, holding 2 steaming mugs. She handed one to me. "Hot chocolate," she said. "Tactical analysis indicates it improves morale by 37%. I chuckled, taking a sip. "So what's next for the hero of the city?" she asked, her tone light but her eyes serious. "I don't know," I admitted. "Rebuild. Try to find some peace." "Well," she said, leaning against the railing beside me. "The world is going to need people who understand this new biology. People who can maybe use it to heal, not just to fight. And I'm going to need a research partner who's a living, breathing miracle of science." She was offering me a future. A purpose. I looked out at the city lights, flickering back to life one by one. I had been betrayed and left for dead. I had become a monster to fight monsters. I had lost my father but saved the world. Now, I had a family that was safe. I had the respect of those who once tormented me. And I had the attention of 3 very different, very incredible women. Kiera, who represented a past I could forgive. Kenna, who represented a peaceful present I could embrace. And Kalina, who represented a future I could help build. The path wasn't clear. My life would never be simple. But for the first time since I woke up in that swamp, I felt a genuine, unburdened smile spread across my face. I had survived. I had won. And I was finally free to choose my own genesis.